Good afternoon. I hope everyone's well today. Thank you for watching. As always, it is appreciated. If you find value in this video, consider liking and subscribing. It does help the channel out a lot. Now, there's been a lot of noise over the past 48 hours about this Egyptian dissident that's been granted British citizenship in the United Kingdom. I am outraged, just like everybody else. However, he is not an outlier. He is a high-profile case, which is why he's getting media attention. This is the system set up by Tony Blair working as they intended it to work. So when you've got the Starmer boss going out on TV saying, well, we cannot deport him. But you can deport him. Let's be honest, you can deport him. You're just choosing not to. This is the end game of the Blairite paradigm. They are furiously trying to defend their failing regime, which is why you get dissidents in the United Kingdom thrown in prison, like Lucy Connolly. However, dissidents that are operating within the system, showing the system working as intended, like this guy from Egypt, let's see what's his name, Alaa Abd El-Fattah, lovely British name, he gets the kid gloves. Now they say he cannot be deported. That's what Labour claims. That's not actually true. And I want to get into the treasonous and the treacherous actions of Messrs. Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell, and we'll get into this later in the video. First of all, we'll bring up the automatic citizenship. El-Fattah was automatically granted British citizenship in 2021 under an immigration law which allows mothers to transmit their UK citizenship to their children, even if they've never lived in Britain or they are from outside of Britain. His mother was born in London while his grandmother was studying in the UK. Up until 2019, applicants using this route were subject to good character test, which said Mr. El-Fattah would have probably failed due to his extremist views and on extremism grounds. This law was changed after the Supreme Court that ruled that the requirement was incompatible with the ECHR, our old friend, the European Court of Human Rights, following a legal challenge by a foreign murderer. So there you go, there's three things we need to unpack first of all. The citizenship being transmitted to children for foreign nationals, that is a product of the British Nationality Act 1948. We're not going to go into that in much detail in this video, but it is important. And then we get into the meat and bones of what we're going to talk about today. Citizenship can be removed, and this is thanks to the House of Commons Library, we've got this information. Deprivation usually happens for national security reasons and or in cases of fraud. Depriving someone of their British citizenship for the public good, generally used in the context of national security or counter-terrorism. The aim is to prevent a person that poses a threat to this United Kingdom from returning to the country, which they would otherwise have a right to do so as a British citizen. There are also rare cases involving serious or organised criminals. People can be also stripped of their citizenship if the Home Secretary is satisfied that they have obtained it by fraud, false representation, or concealment as a matter of fact, such as an asylum seeker under a fake identity. So it is possible. The House of Commons Library clearly states that it is possible. The Labour government is choosing not to do it because in their worldview, they are the not so good, very dim-witted, no political nous, and they don't understand that politically speaking it would be the right thing to do. What they understand is it's their job to uphold the Blairite regime, which was installed between 1997 and 2007. Tony Blair was not dumb. You can either say he was a criminal genius or a criminal mastermind, however which way you want to phrase it. He should be in prison. He should be, but he's not. We're going to get into why. What did he do when he became Prime Minister? Well, he understood the Constitution, and he understood what no Tory government since 2010 has actually understood. I know it as a layperson. Tony Blair knew it as a politician. When you become Prime Minister, you become an absolute ruler. You become an absolute monarch. You have to go through Parliament for certain things, but You have taken on the royal prerogative and unto the office of the Prime Minister any powers that the King historically would have, or the Queen historically would have directly, but put into commission with the elected Prime Minister. Tony Blair understood this. One of the first things he did in 1998 was remove the death penalty for treason, and that was in the United Kingdom. It was abolished in 1998 under Tony Blair's government. This occurred through a Section 38 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998, which came into force on the 30th of September 1998. The Act removed capital punishment for treason and piracy with violence and replacing it with a maximum sentence of life in prison. This has made the UK fully abolished the death penalty for all crimes, essentially, for all civilian offences, as the death penalty for murder had already been abolished in 1965, made permanent in 1969. In the same year, the Human Rights Act, which incorporated large swathes of the European Convention of Human Rights, was also brought into UK law, including protocols prohibiting the death penalty, yada yada yada. You get the point. From 1998, our democracy, the parliaments, or supposed sovereign parliaments, was put on guardrails. We can't do things that contravene international law. We cannot do things that contravene the European Convention on Human Rights because we want to be nice people. It doesn't change the fundamental principle that Parliament is sovereign. Any government since 1998 is choosing, they're making a political choice not to touch the Human Rights Act of 1998. You get the lefty liberals saying, well, what about human rights? My human rights. You had human rights before 1998. You can't even play that fucking card. You really can't. Let me get into the most egregious part of why Blair and Campbell should be in prison. In 1997, shortly after Tony Blair's election victory, the government issued the Civil Service Amendments Order in Council of 1997. For those of you that don't know, Orders in Council are the British equivalent of executive orders. They are statutory instruments issued in the name of the monarch, that the monarch approves, that gives government scope and power to do things without Parliament's approval. This is what he did with one of his first Orders in Council. It was an unprecedented measure which allowed up to 3 special advisors in number 10 Downing Street to exercise executive powers. That would be the royal prerogative, including authority to give instructions or directions to permanent civil servants. Powers that special advisors did not normally hold. They were limited to providing advice only. In practice, this applied to 2 individuals, Alistair Campbell, the press secretary and director of communications for Blair's number 10 Downing Street, and Jonathan Powell, Blair's chief of staff. Essentially, they were wielding the Prime Minister's powers directly, and they politicised the civil service. This is something that has never been done in British history, and it overtly politicised the supposed impartial civil service. This is serious, and this is what we're getting to here. Not only did Tony Blair hollow out the British Parliament powers, gave more powers to Europe, gave more powers to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland through devolution, created a 2-tier system of MPs, where English MPs don't have any say on devolved Scottish matters, or Welsh matters, or Northern Irish matters, but those same MPs have direct authority over English matters, because England didn't have any devolution. Not only did it do that, it created the Supreme Court, that Britain never had until 2009. It also created the OBR, that came in just after they left Office of Budget Responsibility, and it also brought in Ofcom. Alright? All of these things are Blairite inventions. They all need to go. And then we get on to this. This was widely criticised at the time as politicising the impartial civil service and setting a dangerous precedent. The order remained in effect through Blair's premiership. However, on June 27, 2007, Gordon Brown's first day as Prime Minister, He revoked it in one of his initial acts, removing the ability for special advisors to issue the direct instructions to the civil service. Blair officially stepped down on that date, so the revocation occurred immediately after his departure. It wasn't done by Tony Blair himself. This was done by a granting of the order in council. Alright? That's very, very important. So essentially what they did is they put the civil service on statutory footing when they revoked this power for the civil service to take direct instruction from special advisors to the Prime Minister, non-elected special advisors. Alistair Campbell's a tit. He's never been elected to anything. If you've ever seen him try to debate people, he just shouts over them and talks down to them and basically bullies people live on air. This is why he hates Brexiteers. This is why he hates Nigel Farage. This is why he hates Reform UK. These are the specific reasons why he hates them so much. Because he knows when Reform gets in, they're going to fucking undo all of this, as they should. Gordon Brown, what he did when he became Prime Minister, he basically put it on statutory footing that the civil service is now impartial. Now the damage has been done. Now Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell have put in all the little tweaks and all the little mechanisms that they wanted to put in. At that point, you can put the civil service on statutory footing to say, oh no, you can't politically compromise us now. We've got these special rules, we've got the special code book, you can't do that. Alright? All of this needs to go. And if you look at Keir Starmer, and you look at Sadiq Khan, and you look at our, Attorney General, Lord Hermer, and you look at Shabana Mahmood, they are all human rights lawyers. Keir Starmer literally wrote the book on how to interpret ECHR regulations and rules for British judges. He literally wrote the book on it. And you think he's going to deport one of his biggest wins? You could say. This is their system working as they intended it to work. But this is a prime example of why it all needs to go. As I say, as an aside, the British Nationality Act 1948 needs to be looked at. I've mentioned that on this channel multiple times, that does need to be looked at. Because the fact that somebody who's not a British citizen can have a child in the UK, like El-Fattah's grandmother had her child in the UK, which meant that she was a British citizen because she dropped the baby in England, that shouldn't be allowed. Definitely not. And we need to look at revoking citizenships for a lot of Commonwealth citizens that came over post-1948 because they didn't adapt, they didn't assimilate into Britain, they didn't become British, they remained children of Kashmir, they remained children of, I don't know, the Empire. They didn't integrate, so that does need to be looked at. But all of this damage that was done by Blair and Brown, all of it needs to go. The Supreme Court, Ofcom, the Human Rights Act 1998, all of it needs to go. So when they turn around and say, we cannot deport this fucker, they are lying. They can. Blair understood it, I understand it, and I hope you all understand it as well. The system can change. It can evolve. It can digress. It is not static. The Constitution is fluid. And Parliament is sovereign. No law that Parliament has made can't be unmade. That is the pinnacle of the way our system is meant to work. Now, if you like this video and you agree with me that Campbell and Blair need to be in prison for crimes against the realm, you make me aware. Make me aware, do you think that Keir Starmer, do you think he has any intention of deporting this guy? I don't. He's the poster child. He's probably going to be a Labour voter in the next election. Have a good day and thank you for watching.